Today on Homeworthy, we're embracing the philosophy that more is more as we dive into the colorful, bold world of maximalist design. Join us as we explore 3 stunning homes: a Victorian cottage filled with antique treasures in Georgia, a cozy and eclectic apartment in New York City, and a vividly curated home in Kentucky. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, my name is Katie. Welcome to my home in Georgia.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Katie Hyatt. I'm an antique dealer and collector and creative director for St. Senora, and we are in my folk Victorian cottage here in Madison, Georgia with my dog Brother. We were searching for a house. We'd been living in Atlanta. My husband's from Atlanta. I'm from Texas, and we lived there for about 10 years, and during the pandemic we just decided that the city was no longer a good fit for us, so we decided to look more rurally. And initially we were going to look more towards a smaller city, kind of like Charleston. We like that historic charm. But I found this Greek revival in Washington, Georgia, which is about another hour from here. So we went to take a look because I've always had grand dreams of living in an old house. And we saw it, and my husband immediately was like, no, that is way too much work. And on the way home, we were driving through Madison, and we'd been to Madison probably a decade before that with my parents. And at that point, we had just started dating, so it was kind of funny to come through Little Madison, and we were driving down Main Street, and we were just totally enthralled by the small town charm and the fact that it does have nods to Charleston and Savannah in a lot of ways. And so we began our search here, and we initially saw this house for sale as we were driving through, and I immediately dismissed it because from the front it didn't really look like it was much. But my husband was like, hey, let's just take a look. And he's a real estate agent, so he's very practical about those matters. And when we walked through the porch, it kind of really, just captured us. We didn't have an outdoor space in Atlanta, so that was one of the things we were really looking for. And I really love that this has just like a shotgun hallway with all the rooms that come off of it, and just the historic charm of the home itself. And so we've been here about 4 years now, and ever since then we've been making it more our home. We are in the main hallway of our house. This is actually the original part of the house. It's broken up into 3 parts, but this is what I like to call the palette cleanser, because it is got a clean kind of white color, and this is Faro and Ball. I believe it's Cornforth white. We went through a couple of different whites, so I'm not positive on that, but I believe that's what it is. When we first moved in here, the ceilings, which are 12 feet, were actually painted maroon around the edge, and I felt like it really dropped the height of the home. So when we came in, we painted the whole thing one color, including the ceiling. And I really think that it lends itself to the height of the house. From here, we've got this wonderful canvas, and this actually came out of my parents' home in Texas in a little town called Centerpoint. And the previous owners were big antique collectors. My mom is not so much. She appreciates them, but she kind of lets me take on that role. And this is a bit of folk art. I'm not really sure the scene, but I find it very picturesque. And so I rolled it up and brought it home and then remounted it on canvas stretchers. And then right here, this is another piece that I really like. We got this at auction, and it's walnut, and it's from the show Ozark. The auction site was just selling pieces that I guess the show we're done with. A lot of times shows will just kind of, they'll have a prop stylist come in and buy them all, and then they'll just disperse with them after. So this was just part of the auction, and I actually didn't know it was from the show until we went to pick it up. The auction house was in Chattanooga, and it is solid. So, and my husband and I moved this. We don't have movers. We move everything ourselves, which I'll probably find out that in about 20 years when I can't walk. So yeah, it's a really beautiful piece of wood. It's got, you know, the turned legs, and it's great for storage. And I feel like it's really great that we have family photos. I have so many family images, and I just wanted to find a way to display them. And I actually just took a cue from the British, because I feel like the big country houses, they do it right. They just kind of somehow make it look so effortlessly with their antiques. So I've studied that in a lot of magazines and catalogs, and this is kind of what I came up with. Here are all our family photos. This is a section of family photos, just with grandparents and loved ones who are no longer here with us. And then, of course, our parents and dogs, and where we got married. And I love having those out for display. I feel like people like to enjoy those, and it gives more personality to the home itself. But we have these chairs that my husband got at Goodwill, and they're called the Playboy chair. And I think they're in the style of, I don't think these are made by him, Jen Ransom, I believe that's how you say his name. But he was famous for that chair. So they're mid-century, and I just recovered them in some velvet myself. Another favorite piece of mine is this Greek Revival lemon gilt mirror. And this was actually gifted to us by our old neighbors in Atlanta. And this came from his family's estate. And I was really floored that he gifted this to us, because, you know, it's a personal piece. But they saw our house, and they knew that, or they felt like it was meant to be here. And so I always told him, I said, you know, we will caretake it for you, and if you ever want it back, you can have it, because I just felt so bad about taking a family piece. But he said, no, this was meant to be in your home. And you can see some of my husband's sterling silver pieces. And funny story, these goblets, they're 1960s goblets, sterling silver. They've got a trophy. It's for a golf championship. I found them at Goodwill for $1.99 a piece, and they were so tarnished. And I bought them thinking I was just gonna put them in my store. And I had finished cleaning them. My hands were black, by the way. That's how tarnished they were. And my husband said, let me see that. And he looked at it, and he was like, that's sterling silver. I didn't know you could get sterling silver at, you know, the thrift store. So that became a love affair for him. And now he, you know, goes to Goodwill scouring for sterling. He's since expanded his search to estate sales and Etsy, where he has several relationships with older ladies who are getting rid of their collections, and he finds them, and that's one of his passions. So we do have his little one of his small collections right here. And then going over here, this painting is from my first antique jaunt in Europe, and that was in France. And I found it just at one of the stalls, and it was 40 euros, and I couldn't pass up on it. So I shoved it in my suitcase, and it's just kind of been with me throughout the years. And it kind of changes spots throughout the house, but I really like this kind of muted tones and the idyllic scene that it offers. And we also have a habit of collecting portraits. So we have portraits throughout the home, and these three people are fairly recent. This one I got a couple years ago in Atlanta, and his name's Jebediah. I don't know why. I just like that name for him. He looks like he's up to no good. And her, I feel like I'm gonna name her Emma. We're not sold on that name. And he's not named yet, but he does have an eerie vibe, which I'm kind of digging. He's actually kind of coming off the stretcher here, so I stapled him in. But we like things that are imperfect to us. I feel like I'm not a high-end collector. I'm not a high-end seller. I really like what they call that wabi-sabi, that imperfect patina. I feel like it really lends something to the piece. It just shows that the pieces have been loved and really used. And then here we've got just a few more pictures of my husband and I, and then my father, my great-grandmother, and a little side table. This is where I will sit and have a cocktail oftentimes in the evening. And I really liked bringing in this modern piece of furniture. And with the antiques, I feel like it's really important to blend different styles to actually make the house feel warm, lived in, and homey. I went through several pieces of furniture in here trying to make it work, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this because, you know, if you're looking at like a Greek Revival home, for example, they had much wider hallways. This is kind of like the Goldilocks of hallways. Like, it's not too wide, but it's not too narrow. And I went through, I think, 3 different pieces of furniture right here. I had a table in the center. For the most part, this mirror has always stuck in its spot. But yeah, just, you know, finding something to fit here. And what I settled on was just, you know, locating different spaces so when we're entertaining, like if people want to, you know, congregate in here, there's a flow. They can sit here, they can sit here, they can sit there. You know, we have a chair down there. It's just to encourage conversation and mingling. But yes, I do find that there is a balance, especially in here. You know, you've got the heavy weightiness of this table, and to balance it out, you've got this mirror right here and the stools. And then you've got this lighter piece that's more, you know, just, it's modern, contemporary, and I think it offsets the weightiness that's happening over here, because then we're going to enter into a darker space. We haven't had to do any major renovations, luckily. That was one of the things I think that initially attracted my husband to this house. I'm all about the aesthetic. He's about the practical matters. Thank goodness for him, because I don't know, I'd probably be living on the street with my antiques in a box if it wasn't for him. But we walked through the house, and he noticed that the roof was very sound. It had been replaced. You know, all the things that one doesn't see, that had been done by the previous owner. She was the one who added the porch on. She did, you know, the HVAC system. She did all the things that really count when it needs to be done. We came in and we did replace the majority of the fireplace mantles. There's 4 fireplace mantles in the house, and 3 of them were replaced, and we replastered most of the rooms. We haven't really had to do anything major yet, and I stress yet because I always have an idea, and I'm always coming to my husband and I'm like, so, and he's like, no, and so but usually I wear him down. So, you know, there may be a few more things happening, but maybe we'll have some kitchen renovations coming up soon. Welcome to our living room, where my husband and I and the dogs, we spend a good amount of our time in. This room in particular, when we were renovating it, and I say renovating because we really didn't do that much, we started with the mantle, and this mantle was traditionally used for coal burning, but I found it in Atlanta on Craigslist, actually. A woman was gutting her house and she ripped this out of her house. And this is cast iron. My husband and I went and picked it up. I think it was about $100 maybe. And we took it to our condo and hauled it up 3 flights of stairs. And it sat in my studio, my condo, for about 5 years. And, you know, he asked me, he said, why are we doing this again? And I said, because I know I'm gonna have a place for it someday, and I have to hold on to it. And so when we bought this house, and we were putting the rooms together, I just knew it was going to be perfect for this space. So this really changed the whole look of the space. It really kind of elevated it. It made it feel more like a combination of French and English, especially with this huge gilt mirror. And this actually was a frame that I bought at an estate auction for $8. And I had a glass cut and put in here to create this mirror. But originally it would have housed probably just a massive portrait. And I really, again, feel like it pulls up to the ceiling. And then we've just color drenched the whole room in Faro and Ball Mouseback. And I love the name. They're so great with their names when they create their paints. But I love color drenching a room. I feel like it really elevates it and it makes it quite elegant without having to do too much. In addition, because we also have so much. We are maximalists, we collect, 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 and everything does have a place while we are collecting. I want to make sure that that is noted. If it doesn't have a place, it's either moved or maybe it's sold, but I am very intentional about where I put things. I want them to feel right. So when I walk into a room, the way I put things together is it has to feel right. So like right here, for instance, I have a lot of my statues and I've kind of elevated this area with some, you know, French candelabras, and I've got my portraits on either side with my medallions, and it kind of gives it this whole vibe. And then over here, this is more family pictures. This is also just a good way to incorporate them into the room without them being completely overwhelming. And I find that I've got my dogs and then my dad and my husband when he was a kid. We don't have kids, so we tend to have our own baby pictures and our dogs' baby pictures around. And then from there, we've kind of got this collection of portraits. This is what I would call the portrait room. And one picture in particular that I'd like to note is this guy. We don't actually know his name, but we bought him in England in 2018. And my husband actually has become the bigger portrait collector, but he was found in a little shop and he was so excited because it was such a good deal. You know, he loves a deal. So he was so excited. I have a photo of him holding it up. I think it was like 75 pounds. And he was just like, oh my God, this is such a deal. I was like, all right, if that makes you happy, you get it. And it was in this very elaborate Victorian frame. And so I had never had experience really shipping antiques from England, but from France I have. So it's a different story, and you can't just like ship one thing because it's super expensive, as we found out. And we were driving through the Cotswolds, taking this picture around with us, and we're getting frustrated by the second because we can't figure out how to ship this thing. Like, no one is helping us at the post offices there. And we're like, what do we do? What do we do? So finally we get to London. My friend lives in London and she's like, yeah, it's very expensive. You have to go through DHL. And so my husband, we're at our Airbnb, he's like, what? So he just takes the picture apart. He takes the Victorian frame off of it, throws it in the dumpster, and he's like, all right, this is gonna fit my suitcase now. But we named him Winston because just after Winston Churchill, but he just traveled with us. He went on our travels with us throughout England. And so that's the story we accumulate with him. And it's a nice one that we like to tell. And that's one of the things I enjoy about the pieces we've collected is when someone asks us about them, you know, there's usually some kind of story that goes along with it. And it's usually about, you know, how cheap my husband got it for, because that's like such an excitement for him. Another piece is this mirror. I got that for about $5. So here we go again talking about that. But I just painted it this Ankara blue. And again, that's one of those things, like, it doesn't have to be expensive to be something that you consider important in your home. And I feel like the patina and the wear of the mirror really just lends itself to the room. And another thing that I want to talk about, this is just recent, we were looking at getting a new sofa, and sofas are so expensive these days. And we've had this leather sofa, I think since, you know, before we got married, so probably 15 years. And I was like, what do I do? I don't want to get rid of this thing. I've got to find a way to reuse it. So I was asking my upholsterer, because I'm having an obsession with Penny Morrison. I love her work. And I said, how can I create that? So she and I worked on a design together, and I got this linen from the UK, and she created this slipcover for me with this little ruffle. And I feel like it just really lends itself to my Anglophile dreams. And I'm just kind of, it's making the room, you know, my husband was a little bit skeptical about the fact that it's slightly pink, but then when it came in, he was just like, I kind of like it. It works for the room, and it makes it a little more casual and not quite so dark with the leather. It really does just brighten up the space. And I mean, he and I will lounge up here. Sometimes the dogs will get up here with us, but it just is a place where we like to relax at the end of the day. And over here we have another collection of portraits. This gentleman I got from a friend who was doing a house clean out in Athens. And he was a local doctor in the 19th century. And I just thought that was kind of cool to have a local, you know, guy here in the space. And then, of course, I've got to have my Halloween. my Halloween. Halloween is my favorite holiday. And I made this as a tribute to Dia de los Muertos. I really love the butterflies, and you've got the skeleton with her French veil. This is actually a legitimate veil. It is from the early part of the 20th century, and a cotton voile gown. This is part of some things that I've had from my shop, and I was trying to figure out a way to incorporate that. And while I love Christmas, I love that this is a Christmas Halloween tree. But yeah, I love to collect things, and I love trying to find ways to incorporate all the things that I love. And while this is super heavy on the Halloween, I also wanted to incorporate some elements here very subtly. And I've got my coffee table books. I'm a huge coffee table book collector. I find that when I'm looking for inspiration, whether it's styling for my antiques or styling my own home or now styling other people's homes, I love having my books for reference. Pinterest is great, but I really love the tactile feel of a book and being able to look at other people's ideas and then craft my own ideas from that. All right, and then right here we have the first of two bars. We've got this 1930s case that has been traveling with me since I moved to Atlanta, and our collection of books. So this is just a cute little, cocktail cart area that we'll, usually use when we have guests over. And then one more thing I want to show you that is probably my most favorite piece in the room, and it's actually a painting of my great-grandmother, and I was named after her. Her name was Laura Catherine, and she was a redhead, and this is actually painted by one of her former boyfriends. And no, they did not get married, but he liked her enough to do a painting of her. And fun fact, she was a redhead, and she went white at the age of 16. So interesting. I would say our style is maximalism because we don't know how to edit. I mean, we edit in the fact that everything in our home has a specific place, but there's a lot of it. And we buy what we love. So you will see various styles throughout our home, but we tend towards English pieces and French pieces. And honestly, that style has evolved the more I've become in antiques. I think my first kind of old purchase was mid-century, and then it's gradually evolved more, and now we're at the Georgian era of things. And I think I tend to like the Georgian pieces just because they are more classic and they're more symmetrical. The Victorians were a little too gothic for me, but we do have a few Victorian pieces, but we just buy and we just make it work. We just, fit everything together so that it works. And I always tell people, if you buy what you love, you're gonna love your house even more, and you can tell a story. And most of the things that we have in here, we tell a story with. We can tell you where we bought them from, and it's a memory. So when we antique or we travel, we usually buy old things and we say, oh, well, that piece came from here and here's the story behind it. So that's kind of a bit about our design style. All right, we're gonna go back across the hall and into my studio, so come with me. Come on, brother. All right, we are here in my studio, and as you can see, I have drawn on my walls. This is what's called, and I hope I'm not butchering this, the trompe-l'oeil style. And basically what that means is to trick the eye, and it's supposed to give illusion and depth to a scene on a wall, most likely. They're usually done for murals. And I don't know why, but I've always struggled with designing my studio space. I think because as an antique dealer, I'm constantly moving pieces in and out, so nothing usually stays the same. I'm always moving stuff around. In fact, my husband will come in and he'll say, well, where was that? I'm like, well, I had to move it because I sold such and such, or this happened or that happened. So I was trying to find a way to make me want to live in this space, because a lot of the time I'd be working in our kitchen and not actually at my lovely 19th century table. So this summer I was like, what do I do? So I found a couple of inspiration pieces online, and I just kind of went with it. And this is mostly freehand. I did some pencil sketches here and there, and I'm usually a perfectionist, but I kind of just leaned into the fact that it wasn't going to be perfect because it was a drawing. And a lot of people have said that it's reminds them of the Madeline books. So it's kind of like, you know, fantasy and fun. And I really do feel like it fills the space well. And I've added my art that I've collected into these, you know, molding pieces. You've got different art pieces around, and this pier mirror I love. I got this in Atlanta at the Swan House. I don't know if they're doing it this year. They did it this year, but they used to have the big flea market there. And she was sitting there all by her lonesome, and my husband and I scooped her up. I have a quiet obsession with mirrors. I say quiet because it's not really quiet. And then this axis hide is from my family's property in Texas. My dad was a preservationist, and this is something that is just a nod to my family and where I'm originally from, and it's very precious to me. And it's a good sitting area, so I can sit here and read, just take a moment away from my desk. I have another sitting area over here with a leather chair. And I love my paintings and the way I've kind of organized them. I've got silhouettes, and I particularly love this lady. I got her recently at an auction, and she's a bit witchy. I love the witchy, the witchy portraits. I haven't named her yet because she's also fairly recent. We've got this Georgian cabinet, which is fairly new. Well, I say Georgian, but it's probably late Georgian, if that, early Victorian. My husband found it recently, and he is a huge furniture collector. And it just houses all my extra antiques, and we love anything that I can kind of stuff with all my stuff from my store. And then I've got my collection of antique silhouettes right here. I kind of like how that works together. And then we also collect a lot of French books. And this poor little Napoleon statue took a tumble recently, so he's headless. Yeah, so this is just a way to make it feel, you know, this vignette. That's one of the things I really like, is a vignette, to make the things fit well and really kind of tell their own little story together. Like I have this, it's a meerschaum pipe, and it's actually a Labrador, and I never get to find things like this. So, and that's in its original case. And if we walk around, this mantle is something I also wanted to talk about. It was an eBay find, and it is actually the same age as the house. And I had the guy bring it all the way down from, I believe it was Connecticut. And I love that. It just fits so perfectly. So it was meant to be. And again, we've got more books and statues, more mirrors. And I really love the way this just kind of fills in. I have a lot of pieces that are actually for sale that are just kind of living in the house. And again, they just rotate through our home as they find their next home. And then here is where I do all of my work. So, and I love this table. It actually unfolds and it stretches out to another like probably 6 feet. So it's actually got quite a bit of room, and it's a hefty guy. And I got her at an estate sale as well. Lighting is a big thing for me. I'm not a huge overhead light person because I like things where the light is dim and soft and it covers all of the dog hair on the floor. But I found this bronze chandelier on Facebook Marketplace when we first moved in, and it was coming out of a very grand home in Atlanta, and she was just redoing her whole house, and she basically gave it to me. I mean, like, she didn't give it to me, but for the price she gave it to me. And I made these little shades for the lights, and I felt like it really gave it a cozy vibe to the piece without it being too austere, kind of just making it more friendly, if you will. But she is kind of the piece de resistance in the room, and I'm just so ecstatic with the find. And I think my husband wanted to kill me when he put it up because we were definitely sweating when we put it up. She's a heavy beast, but I am so excited about this piece. I love it when I walk into the room, and it really makes me happy. I really first became attracted to antiques from a young age. I've always loved old things. My grandpa was a big junker, and my dad would always say, I don't know where you get this from. You must get it from your grandfather because I don't really understand why you collect old things. And I would always tell him, well, I really love the history and the provenance and like who would have owned this and why would they have owned this. So I've always been attracted to antiques, but I really got into antiques kind of about 5 years into my stationery job. I kind of made this stationery job for myself. I had just quit, like, I guess a 9-to-5, if you will. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I did photography for a little while. I taught myself film photography and digital photography. And then from there, I got more into the wedding industry, and a dear friend of mine who did our stationery for our wedding, she sent me a calligraphy kit, and I taught myself calligraphy. And so from there, I started a calligraphy business, and it was kind of at the beginning of when weddings were becoming very editorialized. So I got in the midst of that, and I was able to meet some amazing creatives, some amazing stylists and photographers, and got to go to several workshops in Europe and also learn from those people. And I feel like from there I've picked up skills like styling and more photography tips. And when I was in Europe, I was with a friend and we were in France, and we went to an antique market. I believe it was the Valms flea market, and we picked up things, and I was just picking up little things here and there. And I'd started my business. I'd been in my business for 5 years at this point. And I thought, I want to offer other stationers some props and some pieces that they can style their stationery with. And I'm just gonna open up this little store. So I opened up the store when I got home, and I didn't have that many things. I mean, it was just stuff from that collection from the France trip. And I sold out. I sold out that day. And I was like, well, maybe there's something to this. So that kind of started my antique journey. And I believe that was in 2015. And so from there, I just kind of started doing more antiques and stopped, doing the wedding aspect so much. And so it's this whole journey, but at the heart of it, I just love old things. My ring is old. And that was one of the requests that I had when my husband proposed, was I really wanted an old ring. So I just love the history of pieces and really what they bring to the table, and they really can give a homey aspect. They don't have to feel so stuffy or like you're in a museum. We are in the primary bedroom, and it is very pink. I knew I really wanted pink, especially this pink. It is sulking room pink from Farrow and Ball, and I feel like it's a very cozy pink. Like I feel like I'm wrapped in a hug when I'm in this room. And I remember when I started painting, I was nervous about how my husband was going to feel about a pink bedroom, but he actually really loves it. He says the same thing. It's very cozy in here. And I think that layers are super important alongside doing a whole pink bedroom. We didn't color drench in here. I do feel, in my opinion, when you color drench, it makes the room feel a little bit more formal. And I really wanted to have some light reflect off the ceiling. So I did paint it a lighter color, just so when the light bounces off, since we only have one window, we do get a little bit of that reflection happening. So one of the things I really want to talk about is this sofa. So the lady who did our large sofa in our living room, she reupholstered this piece for us, and I got it from Goodwill. I think it was $30, and it had a ruffle, and I loved the curved back, and I just knew it was going to just add to the things that I love about England. So I just thought, well, if I add this in my room, I'm going to feel very much like I'm in an English countryside manor, and I have to have it. And so what I did was I played with two different fabrics. So I did like a calico chintz, and I did a really nice cotton velvet with it. And it's a super cozy sofa. I find myself taking naps here, snuggling with the dogs. I'll work here sometimes, and it finishes off the bed quite nicely, I think. It's just a place that my husband and I like to sit and enjoy at the end of the day. If we're just don't want to, rest on the bed, we'll come hang out here. Same with this little chair. I got this chair at Goodwill, and it's got this worn, pretty pink linen to it, and it sits right below Sir James. I don't know what he was the Sir of, but his name is Sir James. And like most of the things that have so far been in our house, there's a lot of collecting. So we've got this Georgian secretary cabinet right here. And this is from a lady who I really love. Her name's Helen, and she owns an estate company on the west side in Atlanta. And she is someone that's been super supportive of my career in antiques. And so whenever I truly love a piece, she always gives me a good deal. But I love this Georgian piece. It houses a lot of really nice items. For instance, you've got my grandparents' wedding cake topper in here. And then I've got a couple of sentimental things from my dog who passed, alongside some favorite books and scents. And again, there's just more art that kind of just encapsulates around the space that I feel like kind of ties the whole thing together. One of the other things that I want to talk about is this mirror. I've been obsessed with Louis Philippe mirrors for a very long time, and my husband gifted this to me for Christmas one year. We got this at Scott's Antique Market, and really it just set off a chain of events. So now, ever since I've had this mirror, I've collected a lot more mirrors in my life. There's 3 in here total, I think, and it's just gone everywhere with us. And I like the idea of gifting each other antiques. We've done that for several years. And it just makes, adds to the charm and the memories when you have pieces like that. Another piece is this armoire. I got this off of, wasn't Cherish. It was one of the few auction sites, the new auction sites that had just come around. But we had to chop the legs off. I was so sad because the measurements were wrong and we couldn't get it through our condo. But nevertheless, it's a favorite sturdy piece, and she's quite heavy because this mirror is like probably 1.5 inches thick. So whenever the door opens, it's like, it's so creepy. And so then you've got to have this kind of adhered to the wall so it doesn't tip over. Another thing that I really enjoy is drapery. And these curtains are some of our favorites. They're blackout, and we found these, we thrifted these, and they actually work really well with our 12-foot ceilings. I wouldn't say they're the easiest to close, but they work nonetheless with the cream and the burgundies, and that ties in with the pinks and the blues and everything. I don't like matchy things. I kind of just find what I like and I put it in the room and I make it work. And I think that that's such a key thing. And sometimes I feel like that's also an intuitive thing. I don't know it's something that you can necessarily teach, but it's something I've been doing since I was a very small kid. I would go travel with my dad on his business trips, and I would like organize our stuff and like make things fit together. But yeah, we've got curtains here. You can see we have curtains around the bed. Over here, these are some really pretty blue silk drapes. These are actually curtains that I've actually put around the bed to kind of encapsulate it and make it a little bit cozier. This painting came from an antique dealer friend of mine in Texas, and he got that out of an old barn. And I love this, just how it's cracking and it's peeling, and just, again, it adds texture and it adds character to the room. I don't like the perfect thing. I like things to be a little bit broken and worn, and I really just think it lends itself to the room and creating a homey feel. Now we are in our library and main bar area. If it were up to my husband, I think there'd probably be a bar in every room, but this is the main section. And to make this feel more like a separate room, because it really is a shotgun hallway from front to back, I've painted the floors. And before anyone gasps at me, these floors are not original to the house. This was probably added with the second addition. The first part of the original part of the house ended at the end of the hallway right here. So to make this feel more like a separate room, we painted the floors, and I had this paint actually custom made, so it kind of resembles like a Dutch blue. And I really think it goes well with the paint color, and the paint color is dead salmon on the walls, also by Farrow and Ball. And we color drenched in here to kind of give it more of a bar, kind of cozy cave vibe. And what we did here is we added in the famous IKEA Billy bookcases. So these are from IKEA, and then my husband has come in and trimmed them out to make them look more custom. And then I added in this mural, and I really love this You know, you've got this kind of couple and she's telling them a secret, and you've got the wine bottle and the wine glasses. And so we'll sit here on the weekends and have a cocktail and chat about the week. And I also love this area because it's kind of my design reference. There's a lot of design books right here, and I will often pull from here again for inspiration. Like I said, I have books everywhere, but this is where the majority of my design books lie. And then as well as our collection of glassware. We have glassware that are from the 30s, and we have some, I think, Baccarat and just some vintage ones. Most of these are collected from Goodwill. A particular favorite of mine are these, and I love it because the stem itself is open, and so when you pour champagne in here, you can see the bubbles and it goes all the way out to the top, and it's quite romantic, I think. Another favorite area is our actual bar, and this was a table we recently sourced. Well, not recent, I guess we got it right when we moved here, so not recent, but it's French, and this is a French red marble with a brass surround, and you can see all of our vintage and new decanters mixed with some, again, silver pieces, and we've got this portrait here and our other bottles, and I feel like it's just a good place. So we do like to congregate right here with guests, because we've got our Victorian slipper chair right here, and then we've got the infamous Georgian silver cabinet. This also came from the same estate sale that the Georgian secretary came from, in our bedroom, and this houses a good collection of my husband's favorite silver pieces. And if you guys want to see, I'll just show you a few pieces that he was really adamant about me pointing out to you. So this is pretty cool. This one is crafted by a silversmith, a female silversmith named Hester Bateman, and I believe she was from the part of the 18th century, and she took over her husband's business when he passed away, and I think she was in her early 50s when she did, and then her son took over. But she's quite famous for her flatware and decorative tableware. So that's pretty intricate and beautiful. And then another were these two, he's got two of these sauce tureens, and I believe the maker is Paul's Store, and he's a British maker, and this is George III, and he's quite renowned for his craftsmanship, and he was pretty ecstatic when he found these two. Unfortunately, we don't get to use them very often. We'll take some of the silver out for Christmas or for birthdays and set the table. I try to encourage him to use that, because I think that that's one of the fun things about having antiques, is to be able to use them. So that's our little library area, and it's very cozy and we love it. I have been decorating since I was a little girl. I would go over to friends' homes. This is super embarrassing, and I can't believe I'm talking about it on camera, but I would go over to my friends' houses and I would like clean and decorate their rooms. It's so weird, but the moms loved me and my friends loved it too, but they're like, why aren't you playing with us? Why are you decorating? And it's just something I've always liked. I've always liked organizing and decorating and designing things. And when my friends come over, if they're coming for dinner, you know, usually we've got a whole moment happening. There's flowers, or if there's not flowers, there's some kind of decoration at the table. You know, you've got my specific cocktail glasses. It's a whole moment. My favorite thing about my home is that we've made it a home. I mean, we have truly transformed this house from what it was, even though we didn't do any major renovations to it. You can see the care and the love we've put into it. Everything in our home is very intentional, and I have friends who have never been in our house and will tell you that they can tell that all the pieces in our house is very intentional. And you know, I love that the floors creak and that they're kind of sloped a little bit, and it's just the little minutia of it, and the fact that it's just not perfect. And I love the history of the house, you know, the fact that it's, you know, over 120 something years old, and just the windows. I mean, I could go on about the details, but the fact is it's very homey to us, and we have made it that way. We just love it a lot. All right, we are now in our kitchen, and it is kind of the heart of the home, as they say. We spend a good amount of time in here cooking. We cook a lot. We live in a small town and there's not a lot of restaurants, so we do find ourselves making most of our meals. And really, we haven't done much to this room besides change out some knobs and a little bit of the furniture. I did decide to lime wash all the walls. I did that myself, and if you know anything about lime washing, it is a very labor intensive thing because it is done by hand. And this is a paint from Pure and Original called Coffee Cream. And I really wanted to tie in the room with the rest of the house, and so I felt like lime wash really gave a bit of an old world feel to the space. I did recently do some changes. I like to change with the season, so like I'll change my drapes, for instance, or I'll change my lampshade covers, or I just change, you know, with winter and fall, and then spring and summer. Also my Welsh cupboard right here, I'll change out everything. I just put up a bunch of Amari plates to fit with the fall theme and winter theme that will continue to go here. This is a very precious picture to me. This was my dog Yella, and he was my heart dog, so he stays pride of place on the mantle. And these are all things that we use, so this is very practical. I want it to be very aesthetic, but also very practical. And so you can see a lot of our collection right here of just everyday use pieces. Next, we've got this table. This table is fairly recent. We got it about 2 years ago, and I got it at an estate sale in Atlanta. And the table itself is English, while the chairs are vintage French country. And we had a butcher block in the center, but I felt like I really wanted a table. I also love practical magic, and I was really trying to channel that vibe. And I love how in the scene in the kitchen, they're just sitting at the table, and it just feels very homey. And so whenever we have guests come over, we do sit at this table quite often and entertain here. And I really love it. It just adds a bit of coziness to the space. And you can see I've decorated for Halloween. It's a bit more macabre in here. I've added some natural elements, and with like the eyeballs and the skeletons and the mice. And I've got another little vignette right here with this recent purchase. I purchased this a few weeks ago, just a simple pine piece. It's actually it's 2 different pieces of wood. It's pine and oak. And we added some fabric and some new hinges, and she's good as new. And so she stores all of our linens, etc. And I think she looks quite nice above our copper collection. And this new portrait, who I've named Goody Adams because she was a witch. All right, as we head to the back porch, I just want to stop for a second and have you guys look at this alcove area. It's kind of a pride and joy of mine. I got the inspiration from DeGurney, and while I couldn't afford the hand-painted wallpaper, I was trying to figure out a way to replicate that. And what I did was I had my printer print these vintage-inspired botanical prints for me, and I decoupaged them to the wall individually, and then I lime washed over them to give them that hand-painted effect. And I really feel like it makes this piece and this hallway stand out, and gives it a little moment for itself. All right, y'all, we're at the last stop. This is our porch, and it is probably our most favorite room, I would say, because we get to use it for a good amount of the year. And we feel really lucky to have this because we didn't have access to an outside area when we lived in Atlanta. And so we try to take as much advantage of this as we can. And this room, I would also say, is a palette cleanser because, as you can see, it's not quite so maximalism. It's a little more calm and serene. We do have some things out here, but it's not like it is on the inside. I did manage to incorporate a few antique pieces out here. We've got, you know, some plates, my husband's collection, because he is actually the collector of the plates. And so we've got a few of those surrounding, and then a few other decorative details. But mostly we just like to come out here and we watch films. We just hang out with friends. We entertain a lot out here. And most of our friends have dogs, so it's usually filled with dogs on sofas. And there's just a great breeze, and it's a wonderful place to be. And I feel like it really just is serene with the color choices that we've picked. And I would say this is probably Brother's favorite room in the house as well. We actually got this sign, Little Riviera, from an antique dealer friend of ours. And my husband loves signs, and we were looking for something to put above the drapes here. And it just fit the space perfectly. And so sometimes we'll tell people, they're like, oh, what are you doing tonight? We're like, we're at the Riviera. It's really just our porch. But I do love the patina again, and the wear, and how it's just not perfect and it's broken, and it's just, it really does add character to the space. And it's impactful, I think, as well. And then next we have these zinc containers. Normally these have, you know, palm trees on them, but I wanted to add something more fall. So I've pulled in some pumpkins, and these we got from Restoration Hardware. And I love the face because it does lend itself to the whole French vibe. And again, it's got those gray tones that we're picking up throughout the space. And I really like that they're large, and we can move them around if we need more table space. So they're also practical. Thank you so much, Homeworthy, for coming through my home with me. Brother and I had a great time showing you all the details. Until next time, bye y'all.
Hi. Who? Oh, Homeworthy's today. Give me 1 minute. Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Calvin Rezick. This is Disco Stardust, and welcome to my Brooklyn, New York apartment.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Calvin Rezick. I am a cozy, opulent, maximalist interior designer. And right now we are in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where I have my 1-bedroom apartment with me and my cat, Disco Stardust. I stumbled on this apartment online and had to come check it out. And the space is great. I've loved the layout. And I think I asked if there was a 2-year lease, and they said, I don't know about that, but it's rent stabilized. And I was like, okay, why didn't you list this? This would have sold a lot quicker. Let's do this. And I was able to get a 2-year lease. I've been here over 2 years now, signed another 2 years because I'm here to stay. And I'm so happy that I could have a place to nest and fully do it up and know that I won't have to be kicked out anytime soon. So it's just a part of my nature that I need a sanctuary. And I think once you realize that you're gonna lose the deposit, I think then the fun comes in. You just let that go, and paint is so important. So the first thing we did was paint. And I worked with my friend Carlton, who is a illustrator, and we fully did decorative painting throughout the whole house. To define my aesthetic at a broad scale, I would say I'm a cozy, opulent maximalist. So what that means, there's a dichotomy that I've realized actually was built from my youth, where I was really raised on Americana, and like my family really was a part of that American dream, I would say. So I do have like roots, and I really like this like down-to-earth, comfortable style, but I fantasized. I grew up in Cleveland. All I wanted was out. So I really was enthralled with pop culture and anything that was not like shoveling snow and the white picket fence. So I mix this exoticism with like down-to-earth, comfortable. I love opulence, but super livable. So that's kind of what that cozy opulence means. It's all that back and forth that I love to play with, grit and glamour. From there, really the color palette all sparked from Indian block prints. I really love handcraft, and it all started with a bandana that I have there. Pulling from those colors, they're earthy but colorful. And I think people are so scared to use color, but when you tone it down to earthy tones, it's really this moody fantasy, and you could still have like a vibrant home without it being so overwhelming. And that's what I really love about the space. First off, we'll go in the living room, which is here. And the color palette, I originally had this in my old apartment that I was at for 1 year, and I just tweaked it up a little bit. The whole color story really started from this bandana from Les Indiens, and it's a block print, Indian block print, which I really have grown to love over the years. And it's just to see the handwork, and literally each color is stamped on. I love this orange. It's just moody but vibrant at the same time, which, same. So first we'll talk about the walls, since we're here. They have data molding throughout. Already here, it's a pre-war building from the 1920s. And I think they must have added, this must have been a bigger house that they added this wall, but the molding wasn't here on this side. So my friend Colton Ackerman, who I worked with on my last apartment, on this apartment, we really riff off of each other really well. And he really does this like cartoony trompe-l'oeil, we call it. And I know it's not real trompe-l'oeil, people calm down. We do a cartoony take on trompe-l'oeil, which trompe-l'oeil is to fool the eye. So I do think this actually is a good take on it, because we just continued this data molding throughout and just painted it in a wonky way. I love the wonkiness and the kind of like not seriousness of it. So that really started the entire living room. And then I'll just walk through the whole space. So of course I love collecting art. This, everybody's like, why do you have JFK on the wall? It's a paint by number that my grandpa painted, and I actually had him sign it before he passed. So there's Carl, he even knew the date, the year that he made it. So I just love it, and it really goes into this Americana lifestyle that I really feel like my upbringing was about and my family's all about. We're very big on pop culture. My grandpa, we called him Papa, from West Virginia. He loved Johnny Cash, and my grandma loved Elvis, and actually named my mom after Lisa Marie Presley. I've been to like Beatles festivals growing up, and it's kind of funny to link it because I'm a big pop culture fan, which you will see very easily. This little guy, I used to work for One Kings Lane, and we had an artist come in, Vicky Chu, and she painted literally whatever you wanted. She specializes in these animals. And I like to say that my animal would be a flamingo, being tall and lanky and fabulous. And I lived in Miami. That was my dream, to live in Miami. So when I first moved to New York, I was like, what is a pink flamingo flying into the city? So that is a representation of that. And then I found this vintage map from, I want to say the 60s. And I just love, it's kind of like on your way out to see like, oh, where am I going? And I love all the little doodads and people pointing out what's going on in Manhattan. They were throwing away a lot of books at the library at my school. And I literally for weeks after class dig through all of these books to collect, because I just thought it would be amazing to have. So here it's just a mix of all of that. This is a wig from High School Musical. My friend Katie, who I'm officiating her wedding, she's my oldest friend all the way from elementary school. And she came in, and there was a High School Musical party, and we fully got dressed up, and Sharpay is my girl. I thought I wanted to date her growing up, but then I realized I wanted to be her. So it didn't come in on time, this wig. So I had to come up with a plan B. And now I just have this wig that I thought was hilarious to have on display. I have to show, I was digging through my, my bedroom from growing up, and I found this pin that I taped over Troy's face because I only wanted Shar in it, which I just thought was hilarious. One of my favorite books, Tom Bianchi from Fire Island Pines. I read Dancer from the Dance, which is somewhere around here, by Andrew Holleran in college, and it was my favorite book completely. I did a whole project on it in design school, and the New York 70s lifestyle of being gay and going to Fire Island was everything. So I found this book in Miami when I was still there. It was the last one. And am I allowed to open this? Just showing Fire Island in its prime. Up here, I have kind of a collage of these borderline creepy, is it even borderline? Stuffed animals. I love that it is the first thing that you see when you walk in, and they're like peering over, and I love that this light even makes it more terrifying. And then I do have notes throughout the whole house of fat orange cats. My first cat, Bella, was a big sassy orange cat. So I do collect these throughout. Just another little fun note of my life. Going down here, I found this at a flea market with my grandpa, and in college in Cleveland. I feel like to go to the Midwest, it's very untapped, which I really love. And I swear I got it for about $40, and it's like such a fabulous piece that I will always have. This guy is a moment, and yes, I do have a lot of self-portraits in my house. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm a Carrie in Sex and the City. I'm a Carrie. Like, it is what it is. But this is a fun story. In high school, we had an actual film developing class, and my art teacher, Mr. Casper, was very generous with me and really let me express myself however I wanted to. So the challenge was portraits. That was the task. And everybody was taking like flowers of their friends, and I'm like, no, I'm doing me. This became so controversial because I took off my shirt and I had tape wrapped all around me, and they let me do it. We had to like clear the room, and then he took my film, and I had to talk with the principal to get approval to develop it. So I have been known to be controversial and to be bold, but this was at a time that I was coming out. So I kind of love that it's kind of representing the madness and, I don't know, craziness of that time, figuring yourself out. I will say, this is from Anthropology Outlet. It's a vintage velvet nightstand that I just thought was so fabulous. And when I was bringing back all of my grandparents' heirlooms, I had a U-Haul, and I knew that I was gonna take a pit stop to Pittsburgh at the Anthropology Outlet. So a lot of my lights are actually from there. I just went to town and then brought my electrician to rewire everything, which really makes a difference from the boob light that we all know. In a rental, the sofa I had delivered from LA. It's called HD Buttercup is the company, and they did a collab with Hay. And just to find a sofa that is unique and comfortable and colorful, like, this is my sofa. Like, I feel like people walk in and are like, of course, this is your sofa. I tend to gravitate towards clean lined furniture, which I do feel like keeps the home fresh, and then pile it in with rich textiles and that Indian block print that I talk about a lot. Also, this coffee table, I've always loved ABC Home and could never afford it, of course. So when I lived, I had a time where I lived in Cleveland during COVID, and something was itching in my head that I need to stop at the Our House outlet. And I walked in, and they were doing a crazy sale, and I saw this, and this is like the ABC Home fantasy that this is my dream coffee table. So I just love this metallic mirrored top, And I love that I could shove books like on the ground and just, it's just a little 70s fun that I love to mix in. A little glam, don't we all need it? For this collage on the wall, it's fully a mix of past and fantasy. So this part I really cherish. It's from my grandparents' house. It's a cutout of the wallpaper that was in my bedroom there. And my grandparents were not fancy at all, but for some reason, they had this fabulous toile wallpaper that I, would wake up to and look at every morning. So as they were renovating to sell the house after they passed, I was like, can I please have a cut of this wallpaper? And I'm just so happy that I could have a slice of the home that really was home to me. That was like sanctuary growing up, was staying at my grandparents' house. Then we have a dose of queer art, Carlos Rodriguez. I love cheekiness. I feel like he does it in a cartoony way that's like playful and cute. And of course we have Lady Gaga, the Fame Monster, the Monster Ball I went to twice growing up before I knew I was gay. Yes, I saw Gaga twice before I knew I was gay. And this was the poster that I had hanging in my bedroom. Really, Gaga showed me fashion and eroticism and really being daring and bold, and I owe a lot to her. You see these everywhere now. I got this in Miami, where I went to college, at the Lincoln Antique Market of my birth month. And then this is actually a page that I ripped out of my high school library. It was this whole like pop culture book, and I was flipping through it one day after school, and every single page had dicks and boobs drawn over it, like, kids writing all over everything. So I flipped to this, and this is a photo of Woodstock, and I was like, I have to have this. And I literally ripped out the page, because the book was trashed anyways, folded it up, you could still see the crease, and took it home. So this is a touch of my high school rebellion, I guess. This room is facing pretty much a brick wall, which I kind of am fine with. A lot of the times you're coming home at night anyways. And some artist friend that I was talking with was talking about their own home, and they mentioned how their space was dark and they just decided to own it. And it really resonated and spoke to me that not every single house has to be light and bright. And I am on the second floor, so it isn't the most light and bright. So these are from Simrain. I'm probably saying it very American and not chic and French, but they are a French company. I went to Paris, and one of my stops was to go here, and I spent hours picking out fabrics. Again, Indian block print, and just they're so colorful and fun and floral, and I'm absolutely obsessed. So I bought them and threw it up, and it's a key part of my house. This is Disco Stardust. She's saying hello. She is a COVID cat that I got during COVID when I was staying in Cleveland with my grandpa, which was, a silver lining moment that I completely cherish, spending time with him in his final years. And she's incredibly needy and sassy and sweet, and we're one and the same. So she will be running around, and she adds chaos to my life. So this I just got in. I work for Darren Hinault, and he has a showroom called Tent and has tons of antique rugs. And this is a Saruk from the 1880s, which it's just, I love Saruks, and I love how colorful, and it literally picks up all the colors in this house and home. And I'm very grateful to be able to have it at an employee discount. So going back into furniture that I have scored from places that I've worked, this is from One Kings Lane. It was a showroom piece. I visual merchandised there and helped open all their stores in their heyday. And I just had to have this bench, which I just think adds another layer to the mix. And then of course we have the Madonna sex book, which I love controversy and things that are enticing and keep you on your toes. So that is an essential in this house. And tying into Madonna, we have the Interview magazine, which when the Gucci Soho store launched, they re-released it all. And it ties back to my mother, who raised me on Madonna and that Blonde Ambition, which you'll see more of. This is another piece from One Kings Lane. They did a show house. They brought it all back to the store and nobody knew what the price was, where it was from, anything. And my manager, Sarah, hey Sarah, was like, just take it. We don't want to deal with this. So I have this gorgeous framed fabric piece casually leaning up against the wall. First off, I didn't have a TV for years, and when I moved into my last place, I'm like, we're doing this, and we're doing it right. And I got the Samsung frame TV, which is essential for anyone with an aesthetic eye. It needs everything to be pretty. This is a fan that was probably from the dollar store from my grandparents' house that I took and thought was absolutely fabulous. October Joe is another queer artist that I follow on Instagram, and thought that almost represented like a day in the life of me. And then this piece was the piece that I was most excited for to bring in this house. I planned the whole space to make sure that this would fit, and I just acquired it, and this is the first time that I have it. And it is an heirloom from my grandparents. At first, it just looks like another TV console, but it actually pops up and is a record player. So this is from my grandparents' house. It was in the attic growing up, and me and my childhood friend Brendan would play Legos in this room and put on my parents' records that they had. And I just thought it was so chic. And it also ties into the clean line furniture that I have. It's, to me, very mid-century modern, and I just am very honored to be able to have this in my house. So from here, we will go into the kitchen, which is right off of the front door. So I knew I needed an impactful moment. The inspiration for this room, I don't know how I come up with these things, but that's why I do what I do. And that's how my brain works. It was, what would Marie Antoinette's confectionery kitchen look like? So I did the hunt for the perfect pink, which I painted and had to repaint because it was looking like Pepto-Bismol. So I ended up working with this moody, almost mauve-y looking pink. And Carlton came in and I wanted it to look trompe-l'oeil, cartoony, the inside of the cabinets as if it was glass. So we threw in champagne and popcorn and Rush and cakes, and it's so much fun to work with Carlton because he really can just go for it and is completely so talented. And then up top we have Disco going after a bird, which is her favorite pastime. And here she is now, the darling diva. I knew when you walk into the house, this is the first thing you see. So I really wanted to go bold. I have this giant fern, which I have a lot of plant lady friends that have helped me on my plant journey. I am not a plant lady, and this plant will probably die in the next month. It's pretty now, and it does remind me of my grandma's porch. She always had ferns and hanging baskets, so wish her luck. Over here is my desk area. I really don't cook, okay? So the function of this needed to be expanded more than just the kitchen. I was working from home a lot last year, and I was like, I need the most light, and this is the most light in the house. One con to this fabulous rent-stabilized, affordable house is it doesn't get the most light, but we're embracing it. So this room does get the most, and I just love this faux burlwood moment from Target. It's supposed to just be an entry console, and it works fabulously. This chair is vintage, and I got on Cherish. It took 2 months to sit on a truck and come over from Utah. But I needed something super comfortable, or else I'm not gonna sit in it, and chic. And especially since this is the first thing that you see when you come in, it really mattered. I mean, everything matters, and everything you put in your home should be something you're obsessed with, and this is what I'm obsessed with. I'm just gonna be real with this kitchen. There's not much space. Disco. Okay, girl. You're really making a scene. So I'm gonna be real. The fact that there is no counter space in this really wasn't a problem for me because I don't cook. And to see what's cooking in the oven, I don't know if you can see this, heels a la Carrie Bradshaw. So literally in here is storage. What's great about smaller spaces is that it like forces you to keep just what you need. So this became my little office space. There really isn't a view, another con to this rent stabilized apartment, but that's okay. But I do love that this is my Carrie Bradshaw moment. I couldn't help but wonder out the window. And really the creme de la creme is this Madonna stained glass moment that I had from Stratford Studio on Etsy. I've had this vision because there is no view, but I wanted to emphasize the light coming in. I did not want to cover it up. For some reason, I've had this fantasy of having stained glass of Madonna. And this is the True Blue cover, and it is my mom's favorite album of hers. It's kind of an homage to my mother, and also that blonde ambition that she raised me on. So it's just great that it's like the staple and the main girl in the house. So over here, we have my Nespresso machine. I did not realize that I would be a coffee mug collector. Right now, lately, my favorite mug is I'm a Carrie. Good and bad, I'm a Carrie. Here are donuts that I bought all by myself. I'm pretty proud of that. And I just wanted it to be kind of sweets and treats, a la Let Them Eat Cake. This also is another piece from Anthropology Outlet that I pulled. This room almost leans like beachy, but I am a beachy kind of girl. So I am a summer boy, July birthday. And also this William Morris Ruggable rug is just so fabulous. So this mirror was another heirloom from my grandparents' house. It was above the mantle. And I literally remember having to jump up and to see myself. And as I grew, I didn't have to jump anymore. So there was a nail already hanging here, but there was a nail hanging up and I just tried it and I think it fits perfectly and it feels like it was the same height as what it was above the mantle. So another little like ornate piece that was probably a garage sale find or, you know, Sears or something find, but I just think it adds a level of the opulence that I love. These chairs I actually took from my high school. They were demoing the space. It was actually my senior year was the last year that they did a film labs, dying art. And I asked my art teacher, can I please take these right before they demoed it all? So I just another element of my story that I've collected and own. Another thing that I didn't realize growing up, but I really started collecting oddities from the start. So my grandpa was a gunsmith and would wake us up before the crack of dawn to go to the flea markets. Usually it was before the people were even set up yet. But he would shop for machinery and I just started to see these beautiful old things with layered stories of their own. And that's really, I think, what I attribute to the start of where I got my eye for interior design from. So throughout the whole home, I have collections from my travels, from the flea markets. My grandpa in his later years couldn't do machinery anymore, so he was like my personal shopper and I would just get boxes of goodies. That was so fun to see like what he thought of me from. And I also recently have acquired a lot of heirlooms, you could say, from my grandparents, who really was a huge part of raising me and my upbringing, and that is just so dear to me to have. And My biggest part about people's homes is that, and what I design is that you should honor your past and celebrate that, function for the present, and like tell the fantasy for your future. So what's your fantasy, but also what's your roots, and like, let's also make this livable for now. So it's completely a mix of that. I also collect a lot of art. I have my toe in the queer art community in New York, so I collect a lot of queer erotic art. So it's really this fun, crazy mix that I love when people come over, because it fully just welcome them into my world and my life and my story. And my like true ethos is that every space has a story to be told, and your home needs to express you. So from here we'll go into the hallway, which is, everything goes off of the hallway, which I really loved about the space. And as a maximalist with a lot of art, this is like my moment to shine. And I love the idea of having this kind of be a mood board of my whole life. The whole house is a mood board of my whole life, but I collect so much art and have so many memories and photos that this really became this head-to-toe collage and was kind of the story of me in a hallway. So with a hallway as well, with bathrooms too, you're really only there for a moment. And especially with a hallway, you're literally like spending 5 seconds walking through it. So I think to have something busy really isn't as much of a problem. And what I love too is every time I walk through, your eye kind of catches something different and sparks a memory or emotion, whether enticing or heartfelt. So let's just walk through all this art. God help us all. Big family of pop culture. Katy Perry and Lady Gaga were my girls. Katy really has shown me to not take herself so seriously. And also the camp of it all was really so amazing for my upbringing and to see creating whole worlds and fantasies. So this is my first drawing, my first portrait that I've ever done. Yes, looking back, her earrings look like onion rings and her eyes look like they could kill, but I still love it. And I love for concerts to come up with elaborate costumes. And I had this full peacock made out of real candy that they didn't let me in the concert. It was too big. And I was devastated, and I made sure that somehow she's gonna see this. And we sent it out to all the arenas, and I did everything. And I ended up winning a contest and got on a Greyhound to come to New York City, and I got to meet her at Madison Square Garden, like in her prime teenage dream era. So I brought this, and she signed it for me. Calvin, you're a very talented peacock, which like still holds true. So I do love to have that in the house. And then Carrie Bradshaw's door in front of my door. I get it, overkill, but I just love that fantasy of feeling my Carrie Bradshaw. There is one section in here that is dedicated to family and friends. My friend Phoebe was like, you really need a wall that doesn't have penises and craziness. And I'm like, maybe you're right that my grandpa shouldn't be right next to, you know, a man in their underwear or something. So this is my family and friends kind of shrine almost. And I've collected, there's photos from my grandparents when they were young, my mom when she was young. Just, it truly is kind of my family tree of sorts, and memories of my friends. And this is my grandparents' home, which was home to me, and it really is just sweet to be able to walk by and take that in. I think that's all to be said about that. Well, first I do want to acknowledge also I have a framed piece of my Favorite teacher growing up, Mrs. Becker. She really had such a positive outlook, and she really instilled that you don't have control on what happens to you or what happens in the world, but your attitude really dictates it all. And we're still close friends, and I adore her. That was from my last day of my senior year. Then also on People's Way Out, I watched the Homeworthy tour of Grey Gardens, and I loved that she had monogrammed everything and she had her own logo going on. And I thought, wouldn't it be absolutely ridiculous to have my own house name for my little one-bedroom apartment? Wouldn't it also be crazy if it was the longest, we're going for it, let's go for it. So this is the hardest part of the whole home renovation to get right, but I have matchbooks that I made for my house, and it is Disco and Calvin's Estate of Extravagantly Elegant, Exotic and Erotic Garden of Earthly Delights. And I worked with this artist, the Match Muse, on Etsy. My fantasy, a la Charlie's Angels, it's literally a bucket list item, is to dance in a martini glass once in my life. She has me dancing in a Cosmopolitan with a pink Marie Antoinette wig. I always want one little blue rose in honor of my grandma, who loved being in her garden, and I asked her before she passed, what is your favorite flower? And she said a rose. So that's my little touch to her. And we have Disco Stardust, my cat, hanging off the end of the drink. I know that this is so ridiculous, but I love being playful. My grandma's life motto is no fools, no fun, which I will be getting tattooed on me someday. But I think it's needed in the world. I think your home is a playground for that past, present, and future, and you should have fun with it. Why not? It's just things, and yes, it's a very emotional process, but you should have fun with it too. This is a Charlie's Angels movie poster. My favorite movie of all time is Charlie's Angels. There's a little rom-com, there's a little action. I love a strong female lead. I was raised by my mother and a lot of strong female characters in my life. So to have the original poster is an iconic moment for me. What else is going on in the space? Above, I had Colton also paint kind of collages. This is a painting of one of my favorite models. Me and Colton met at a drink and draw, which was a bunch of queer artists meeting at a bar, and it was literally my first week moving here, and he sat next to me and heard that I was from Ohio. He's from Ohio, and we've been friends ever since. So anyways, we know a lot of models, and this is Jerome, so glad that I could look at my favorite model every day. Thank you, Colton. Honestly, this the collage has some of my own art, some queer artists that I've collected over the years, just cheeky things that I really love. I really just enjoy seeing when friends visit that it takes multiple visits to really get it all in, and I love show and tell. Honestly, my friends have been teasing me for months, knowing that I'm doing this tour, because I'm such a long story long person. So this is really my moment to shine. A Lady Gaga portrait that I did in high school. Miami was my dream because I loved kind of exoticism, which exoticism is different for everyone. But what was the opposite of shoveling snow in Cleveland? Miami. So I knew that I wanted to move there. Everyone knew that I wanted to move there. My bedroom in high school was Miami beachy themed and over the top and tacky but fabulous in its own way. So we had a block printing class in high school, and I did Ocean Drive. So although as soon as I landed in Miami for college, it was a nightmare, not a teenage dream. I still have my 305 number. It's the one thing I wanted to keep. It's just, the colorful dream that was, that I really still love to have. And it was a part of me, and it really had me grow up quick. I did an internship in New York, and that was my ticket out, and things have flowed ever since. Then moving forward, there really was only one light in this whole hallway, and this nook was so dark and terrible. And I knew I needed to add another. So this I got on Etsy from a woman in France, shipped it in, wired it up. It's literally a plug-in that I plugged all the way into the bathroom because there's no outlets at all in here. But I love like studying a space and seeing how it can be enhanced. That like thrills me, and this has made all the difference. We will go into the bathroom, which Carlton has glamorously painted Shitter. My family is also a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation family, and Shitter's full is a very common phrase that we use. So it also ties into the gritty and glamorous of it all that I love being cheeky with. So in here is the bathroom. My fantasy for this was, it just popped in my head, what if it was an orgy of hands going on? And Carlton absolutely loved that idea and ran with it. What's funny is there's nothing raunchy about anything that's happening, but I kind of just let him go to town, and it was so fun, and seeing how interactive it gets with a light bulb going into the ceiling light. So I kind of went on the hunt for the perfect peachy, nudie tan color, and I really love the moodiness of it. It is the one space that I painted the ceiling as well, and I think it's just fun and it feels fresh and chic. This I got at Crazy Horse in Paris, and it's the most fabulous burlesque show. Please go if you ever go to Paris. From there, we will go into the bedroom. So here is where all the dreams happen, because this is where I sleep. So I really had fun with this space. We'll first talk about the palette. There's this really muddy red that almost reminds me of a brick. My favorite color's red. People were very scared when I told them that I was painting the walls red in my bedroom, but like I said, it all depends on the tone and where you're going, and I feel like it's earthy and plays it all up. So the main centerpiece, the main girl of this space is this rug, which my friends and family all know this story at this point. It is one of my favorite stories. In high school, at about 16, our little public school got to go to Europe in the Spanish club. So our teacher, Mrs. Halko, hey Mrs. Halko, took us there, and it completely rocked my world. My mom has always instilled travel and going and seeing and living in our lives. And also my father passed away young, and it always has, from the start, instilled the reality that we need to go and live. And I think that's been a part of my life and ethos as well, is to just go for it. But I digress. We went to Portugal and Spain, and we had one day in Morocco. And I was so excited for that one day in Morocco. And my mom at the time was able to get free FedEx labels and at her work. And I said, give me a label. I know I'm gonna buy something. And she's like, Calvin, what? And I'm like, I'm gonna be buying something, and I don't know what, but it's gonna be great. And in Morocco, it was not like Casablanca or anything glamorous. It was Tetouan, which I'm probably butchering the name. It was right at the tip around the Rock of Gibraltar. It was just a whole other world, and I loved going through the winding streets. And we went to a rug bazaar, and they did a whole presentation. They were rolling them. I felt like I was so in the zone. It was so in my element. And then they dispersed everyone off and kind of like moved everyone away so people could barter without like asking their friends, should I really do this? They kicked me out because I bartered too low, and I'm like, what? One teacher was like, get back up there and go for it. So I went back up. They were rolling out rugs for me, and I was just like, no, no, no. And they rolled this one out, and my eyes were like glowing, and he knew that it was for me. And he was like, antique hand-woven silk, 800 euros, which is a pretty good deal now that I think of it. But I was just like a broke high school kid. You know, I could not afford that. So I'm like, roll it up. I can't even barter with you on that. Like, I do not have the money. And he kept rolling, and I'm like, I'm not into these. I'm just gonna go to another area. Like, don't worry about it. He chases me down, and he's like, how much can you give for this? And I said, like, I think all I had was like 160 euros. And he's like, let me talk to my manager. He goes over, it's the manager that kicked me out. So that was a whole scene. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, was this a whole show on purpose? Like, I don't even know. He pulls me aside and goes, give me the money. And I'm like, what? And I'm shaking, handing him the euros, and he throws it in a plastic bag and gives it to me. And I was like, what just happened? So, of course, a lot of my first designs in college were Moroccan themed. I do love Martin Lawrence Bullard's designs as well. This has been rolled up for over 10 years, not being shown off to anyone. I needed the perfect moment, and getting this apartment, I was like, it is time. So I added rings to it and hang it up, and I just love this as the backdrop for this bedroom. So the rug was the start to the whole idea of this room. I kind of wanted it to be this rug bazaar moment. So I have rugs kind of scattered throughout on the floor, and then we get into the layout of the space. They added this extra closet because there's only one tucked away. And I know it's a little awkward, but that's what I love about design, is kind of Tetris piecing something to make sense of it all. And I was like, do I put the bed this way facing the windows, or do I center it on this cutout? And I also knew I needed more storage. So I decided to center the bed onto this, and I'm like pretty proud of this. I put a baker's rack, a closet, storage, you know, my laundry, all behind this with these Anthropology curtains on a tension rod from Amazon. I don't know how, but I've never had an issue with it. And it fully centers everything to be on there. I had my electrician swag the Anthropology light to be directly over the bed and centered, and it kind of absolutely works, and I'm pretty happy with it. I will not be showing you what's behind this because it is an absolute mess for you guys right now. I will show you the closet, and that is all I'm showing you. So I do have 3 closets. That's just storage, that's coats and dresses, and then that's the day-to-day clothes that I have. I have really wanted a leather bed for so long, and I love, this is from Article, it is clean lined, chunky, sexy. I think you're either a brown leather person or a black leather person. I'm definitely a brown leather person. I love the casualness of it. I think there's also like a Western part to it all, which I always gravitate towards because it's a little bit Americana, which is my upbringing, and also my grandpa who loved Johnny Cash and that whole world. It's just a little bit of home to me. But anyways, enough about this bed. We have pillows from Simrain again, that Paris company. The bedspread as well, which Disco is modeling for you really gorgeously. And I love linen sheets. This is from Parachute. And there's like a scratchiness to linen that I'm very tactile, which I love about interior design, is the tactileness and touch about it all. And I also had a blanket growing up, like as a baby, that was linen, and it was I guess, my soothing blanket. So I always love something with a little bit of a hand to it. So then we'll go over to here. Speaking of the added closet that they had, the door is completely centered to the bed. And another fun idea that I had based off of my trip to Europe in high school, this is from the Alhambra in Spain, and it was a Moroccan palace, and I took this photo on a rainy day, and I loved like the ombre effect that it had. I just love the ornamentalism of it all. And so I thought, what if I did a arch painted around the door? And I don't know how I have these things pop up, but in my head, what if I have a mirror reflecting directly on the bed, which I thought was a little cheeky and fun. And I know it's bad feng shui, but it's all in good fun. So I had Carlton paint a wonky little arch. I traced it, and then there's a place called Canal Plastics in the city where I know from my days of visual merchandising that they cut out anything, and this is a bronzed mirror that they cut for me, and I think it is such a fun feature in this room. Over here, I knew it really had to be like a solid moment. This is my favorite photo ever. It's Irving Penn, Women in a Moroccan Palace, and I just think it's so glamorous and chic and emphasizes the exoticism that I gravitate towards. This I got at the Paris Flea Market. The first time I've ever gone was last year, and I believe they said it was from like the 20s or 30s, and it was like an absolutely surreal experience to go there. Highly, highly recommend. This mirror, I know it's high up, but number one, I'm tall, and number two, I really hung it. I love leather work, and I hung it here purposefully to reflect the chandelier and add a little more light going on. Oh my God, another tip, if you have AC units, paint your cords. It makes the world of a difference. I know I'm highlighting such a menial thing, but get a chic AC. Like, invest in a little chic AC. This lamp I got in high school, this like retro lamp, and I've had it ever since, and it's such... I just love that I've been collecting. Please start collecting. If you haven't started collecting, start collecting. Pick a color palette that you love and start. One thing too, I hate the color purple. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people love purple, but I loathe it. Please do not buy me anything purple. I think the absence of a few colors too really helps make the space all tie in together. And I don't know what else to say about that. Home to me is your soul completely reflected onto tactile things. Home is your emotions, it's your sanctuary, it's your memories and your fantasies. It's all your dreams and thought put into the real world. If I had any tip to give anyone, is paint. It is so important. I've seen so many spaces where they have really great things and they have their own personal style, but they didn't want to take the time to paint. And even if it isn't as bold as my colorful home, like a nice neutral cream would do wonders. So please to God, it's just paint. It isn't permanent and it's very changeable. Paint the damn house. And then another tip that I have that I really love playing with in my own space, and it's truly just from what I love, but if you pick a key color palette and run with that, I think the world is your oyster, and I think that's really where it starts at. Usually, I know in design school, we picked a piece of art or a rug and pulled colors from that, but I think a lot of people get hung up on what narrative the color story is. For me, it was a Indian block print bandana that I found, and that kind of led way to this like earthy, colorful fantasy that's happening. So that to me is my biggest tip because it's really the starting point for it all.
Homeworthy! I'm Isabelle and welcome to my super maximalist Kentucky home. Come on in. My name is Isabelle Ladd and you're in my living room here in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm an interior designer and I love pretty things, and one of my vices is constantly redecorating. So how you see this living room right now could be very different in like just a few days. So I was born in Brazil and my parents moved to Lexington, Kentucky when I was young, about 30 years ago, and they breed and raise thoroughbreds. And so that's how we ended up here in Lexington from Brazil. My Brazilian heritage absolutely influences my design. Brazilian culture is loud, it's colorful, it's unapologetic, it's very vibrant, it's saturated, it's vivid. And those are the key words that I would use to describe my aesthetic. So I went to school in Los Angeles for textile design at a fashion school, and I moved to Kentucky when I got married and had kids. And I was here with my kids at home. And I'd often have people over for play dates, and they would they would comment, oh, you've got such a pretty house, it's so tidy, it's so pretty, how do you do this with little kids? And I would answer that I don't sacrifice style just because I have kids. There's a way to live harmoniously with a lot of style, a lot of pretty things, and have it be very kid-friendly at the same time. And so I really started my business by saying yes to one friend at a time. So here I am in the foyer, and my favorite thing about this foyer is the wallpaper overload. Now, when you've got a space like this that has no clear start and stop point, it would be common to think that, you know, we can't do wallpaper, let's just like paint it all as a color. But au contraire, you can actually go very bold and very big in a space that does not have these definitive start and stop points by taking your paper all the way up the stairs, up to the second story, which you'll see in a minute, and on the ceiling. And I always think that if you've got really fun wallpaper, don't let just one thing be the really fun moment. Layer and just add more to more. And I love when wallpaper allows you to put a lot of art layered on it. And so that's where this brown and white geometric in many ways acts like a neutral. This is my version of neutral, you guys. And you can just, you know, layer a lot of art and it'll pop. So I love adding antique things to modern things. And so with this very modern wallpaper, it feels very balanced with a very antique rug. And I added this stair runner when my house was first undergoing renovation 10 years ago. And I thought at that time that I wanted to play things safe, and I was thinking about, you know, what's neutral, what will go with everything. And so that's where I picked just a very plain sisal. I would never do that again. I like more is more. I never came around to replacing this, but it's just interesting because it reminds me of my style evolution, starting in a place where things were neutral and things were safe and things were not loud. And then it just reminds me to like how I've come and how my style has developed into something a lot more bold and confident. So, you know, maybe I'll never change this runner because it just reminds me of my humble beginnings. What I love most about my home is that it is absolutely a reflection of all of the things that bring me joy. So that to me is just a lot of pattern, just mixed and not matched. And it's just a celebration of my life with my kids. I've got little trinkets around the house that remind me of trips that we've taken, of stories that we have, and I'm excited to show you those specific things when we go around in the home tour. And but really that's what just brings me so much joy. It's just that my house is decorated the way that I really like. When I first started renovating this house about 10 years ago, I started thinking, okay, should I do this for resale? Everyone really likes a white kitchen. Let me do white cabinets for resale. Let me do marble for resale. And so I did those things based on like what the general public I would think would like. And as I started really living in this space, I realized that's not me. I do not build my house. I do not build my spaces for resale. I build my spaces for me. And so slowly I started transforming these things, these empty walls and these white cabinets into something just a lot more vivid, a lot more of a reflection of me. And so I've really wallpapered like nearly every corner of my house. It's either wallpapered or painted a really fun color. This is like one of the only white rooms in my house, but as you can see, it's not very white. We've added a whole lot of stuff to it. I have so many mottos when it comes to my world of interior design. First up, more is more, less is a bore. Beige is not a color. And above all else, mix but don't match. So now let's come into the parlor. So parlor is my fancy way of saying living room, my non-TV room, and this is one of my very favorite rooms in my house because there is so much that illustrates and puts on display the people that live here, my kids and I. And so what I love about this is just this explosion of color, and there's just a lot of Brazilian trinkets. I love the purple velvet sofa, and then I love just the layers of all of these colors. I love celebrating the culture of Indigenous people, the people that were here before us. I love learning about their culture, and this piece here was painted by Tyler Robertson from Kentucky, and it's just so vivid, so saturated, and so celebratory, and that's why I chose to put it as a focal point here in my living room. It's about the celebration of all of those that were here before us. This chair here, super old, and then I just upholstered it in really fun fabric. Here is a pillow that I got from Brazil. The artwork, this is a Brazilian carnival girl. When I was in Brazil recently, I bought this, is actually a skirt that I bought from a native Brazilian, and so I had it framed. And this is another thing that I had bought in Brazil from the native Brazilians. It's a hand-carved bird. And my things just really tell a story of, you know, where we've been. Okay, I love these shells, and here's what's funny about this. Well, one, my kids went to the beach and they like magic markered a shell for me, but this shell here, we were at a beach eating lunch, and we paid for lunch and we needed change. Well, the people that we bought lunch from, it's just in like one of those like barracks on an island. They didn't have change, and so they gave me a shell instead of currency. And so I love a special story like that. And I love a coffee table that's just like an explosion of like really pretty things. You asked me earlier, what is my style? And sometimes I call it curated maximalist, but like secretly it's like on the cusp of hoarder chic because I love pretty things and a whole lot of it. So this coffee table is just an explosion of so many things that I like. It's not only my favorite pretty books, and but it's also like kids books, and I like just putting, you know, kids stuff with grown-up stuff. I absolutely judge books by their covers. These are coconut shells from Brazil that have been painted, and shell boxes, and when you open inside, it's like a collection of like discarded Lego pieces because, you know, the kids and I, we sync up here. So a little bit mine, a little bit of them. So once upon a time, my house was very neutral. I had a tan couch, I had tan chairs, I had just very neutral things everywhere. And then post-divorce, I really wanted to step into my own and what is authentic to me and what brings me the most joy. And so that's where my house is now a kaleidoscope of color and pattern because it sparks joy to me. A long time ago, this house had a dining room that I used as a dining room. Well, that I decorated as a dining room. We just didn't use the dining room. And so it's very important to me that every space in the house is used. And so that's where I took this big table. It actually has a few leaves, so it becomes bigger. So I took the table, made it smaller, positioned it here because this is a very centralized location in between the kitchen and the living room. And so it's much more used. We sit here very often for dinner times. It also doubles as a game table, and I just finished this puzzle this weekend. I've been working on it for a few days, and I don't have it in me to take it apart yet, so I left it for Homeworthy. So it really does function as a game table. So now I want to show you one of my favorite pieces that has a very cool story. This bar I had originally purchased at HomeGoods, and it was just a cheap white wood with glass panes here. I had it painted in this faux tortoise, and then I put grass cloth wallpaper here on the doors. I painted the inside millionaire red, and so it's just my pretty little bar with a really fun story. And I love displaying pictures. They don't always have to be in picture frames and so precious and so perfect. So every once in a while when I find, like, you know, when I get my pictures printed, I just take Scotch tape and just put it all on display. Funny story here. These are the original minifigs. So my kids are obsessed with Legos, and there's these things called minifigs, like little figurines. And so my boyfriend and I went to his grandfather's house, and he had these for so long. These are like his figurines, and we got these and we brought them back to my kids, and we were like, these are the original minifigs, you guys. Like, Legos are based off these figurines. My boyfriend's grandfather had these for decades, and my kids ended up busting them within minutes of receiving them, and so we just like hot glued them together. So there is absolutely a way to live with kids and not have, you know, the house in disarray and stains on fabrics and broken glass everywhere. And here's what I do. One is I upholster my fabrics in the fabrics that I want and that I love. Because performance fabrics sometimes can be very solid, or a stripe, or something that just doesn't have that va-va-voom factor. So I do what I want and what brings me the most joy, and then I work with a company called Fiber Seal, and they come and they spray a protector on my upholstery, and if there is any time that it gets dirty or stained or whatever, they just come, clean it, and voila, it looks good again. And then another thing I did is in the kitchen is I dedicated certain amount of real estate in the cabinets just for their toys and their books, because what I found out is that even if you have a playroom, the kids want to be wherever you are. And so I'd be in the kitchen, the kids would want to be right behind me. So sure, no problem, let's coexist. But you know, you've got your space for your toys, I've got my space for my things, and that's just, you know, how it worked. A long time ago, when I first started renovating this house, it was about a decade ago, this kitchen was built from scratch, and it was all white. White walls, white ceiling, white cabinets. And it was because back then, that was my style. I thought I needed to play it safe. I thought I needed to do things for resale. And so it was only when I stepped into my confident style and what it is now, that I really just like jazz things up to reflect what brings me joy. And like I've said so many times, it's wallpaper, and it's lots of vivid patterns and prints and just like the explosion of it all together. It took me years to decide what to do here. I thought I needed tile backsplash, but I don't. I needed vibrant prints. And so I ended up wallpapering, you know, where backsplash would go, all the walls, the ceiling. And when I have something that has a lot of statement, I add more statement. And one of my design philosophies is the eye must travel. I want to go into a room and I don't want the eye to land on one piece. I want it to land on one thing and then go to the next and then the next. I want it to be like, wow, that's so cool. Oh, and then there's that light, and then there's this rug. So it's really about a composition, a compilation of what I love so much. But as an interior designer, it's important to think about the balance, when to keep going and when to restrain. And so to me, that's intuitive. I know when to keep going and I know when to stop. That's why, you know, I've got the marble countertop here and the butcher block and the white cabinets and the gold. These are neutral elements to me. A very busy wallpaper, but in brown and white. A traditional rug, and then another brown and white rug. Lucite bar stools. So there really is a method to this madness. So here in this kitchen, the thing that has the most continuative wall space really is the ceiling. And so if I had only wallpapered the walls and the backsplash, it would not have had the same impact at all. if this whole room wasn't enveloped. And so it really is this wallpaper on the ceiling that creates so much magic in this kitchen. Without a doubt, it would have not had the same effect at all had the ceiling not been papered. And as I always say, the ceiling is the fifth wall. I love a house to not be too perfect and really reflects just the way we live. And so for us, that's like, we've got a whole lot of Legos. So, you know, display it in a kitchen. And that is part of my design philosophy of working together with all members of your house and it not be a reflection of just one person. So we've got Legos in lots of places. And this is a felt piece by Sam Sidney of Brittany, who I love. So just little special touches. I love all of my pictures on display. This is an antique piece that I got at High Point Market, and I love it. And I bought it cracked, and I just colored in some cracks with some magic marker. But that's how I like to decorate and to live. Things don't have to be perfect. They can have cracks. They can be hot glued together. It can be like you can step on Legos or whatever. It's just a reflection of just what brings you joy. If you like it, get it. Analysis paralysis is a real thing, and it is so much more important to be in tune with what brings you joy and just get it. Put it in your house. Like, let's go. Let's not just be paralyzed for so many years over an indecision of what sparks you joy or what's going to last or what's going to be better for resale. Like, just do what brings you joy and let's go. So it's very cold in Kentucky right now. It is all gloom and doom, but here is a picture of what my beautiful backyard looks like the other times of the year. Here's this cocktail pool that is perfect for cocktails and cannonballs, and it's heated, it's salt water, it's 5 feet deep, and here's the cabana that is just so lively and colorful and where you will find us all the other times of the year. Comfortable seating, there's a TV, and this is just our outdoor living room. So here we are in the jewel box of my powder room. It's just a teeny tiny bathroom, and I wanted to go really bold with wallpaper. What's very funny about this wallpaper that I didn't know until well after it was installed is that there really is metallic flecks in this wallpaper. And so when the water has hit it, it has alchemized and changed the patina. So you can see like the copper, what's happened here. And I just like a house to be lived in. It does not bother me at all that there are these markings on the wall, and that's just part of my design philosophy. We live in this house, and so these are just things that happen, and I actually would rather that it showcase that than not. Whenever my kids paint a really good picture that goes with the flow of my house, I have it framed, and that's what I like about this, is that it shows a little bit of them in here. And then these are Mexican wrestlers, and I got this when I was traveling in Mexico. And again, I just love some like witty humor, and so my Mexican wrestlers next to my kid art is just perfect for this bathroom. This is a light fixture that I made. It was a candle hurricane. If you flip it upside down, it's a candle hurricane, and I had it rewired into a light bulb. And I just love how the shapes here play off the shapes here. And I love a story, and I love getting crafty and creative. So there you have my powder room. So I've bought 2 houses in my life, and both of them were like danger, no trespassing zones, like before I came in, and that's exactly what I see in a house. I like to go after a house where someone has not renovated it and it is like a danger zone, because that's where I see all of the potential, and I want to do things my way. So when I came into this house, there was no big kitchen. It was like the tiniest little room. There was no primary bathroom. There were no big closets. And it was just a whole lot of white walls and really light colored wood trim. And I looked at it and I was like, that is perfect. And so from that, just va-va-voom came out of it. Now, I want another house, and the only reason why I need another house is because my current house is so perfectly decorated. Every square inch that can be wallpapered has been wallpapered. Every part of it has been decorated. I have done a great kitchen. I've added a cocktail swimming pool. I've done so much to it that now I'm done. I am out of projects, so I need a new house to bring on the chaos all over again. So this girl loves a nook, and I love cozy little moments where it can be very intimate, and it's just a perfect place for a perch, a cocktail. My boyfriend and I are always in this room. This is our catch up with cocktails moment here. And I just like it. It's just like, has no TV, just doesn't have a lot of distractions, and it's just like a cozy, intimate vibe. I will see a place that calls for a nook, and I'm like, I'm gonna nook that. I also have this etagere that is a display of the things I collect. I've got my fashion books, I've got my travel books, I've got my design books, and then I just have like my favorite pretty things. I am always redecorating this. This just changed a few days ago, but even in this room, just always moving and shaking and redecorating. This wallpaper was one of the very first things that I put up when I renovated this house 10 years ago. This was a chair that I thrifted, that I completely reupholstered. I love adding fringe wherever I can, and I just love a display of like so many things that make me happy, and so that's what this little nook is. So here we are in my TV room. Formerly the dining room, but like I had said, we just didn't use this dining room, and I love to use every room in the house, and so I made this the TV room, and it's just very cozy, and I just love it. This is a performance fabric, so we have had like Cheetos and Mountain Dews and like kids stuff just like all over this. Like if there was a black light on the sofa, like it would be bad news, because it's just had so many things, but it's indestructible. And I love this medley of all of the fabrics. So this is a very granny chic fabric, and it just gets, you know, some punch with the tiger velvet. And here's a funky pillow just to like make it a little trippy. This chair is one of my very most prized possessions. I literally had to dip into my children's tuition fund to upholster this beauty in this Latigre velvet, but it brings me so much joy. So this fabulous piece of art is one of my most recent acquisitions. It's by Hunt Slonim, and it is everything I love in a picture. The yellow, the toucans, the big fancy frame, the large scale. So this just makes me so happy. So it's like my vivid painting with my vivid tiger chair in this really vivid TV room, and I just love all the things. Something unique to my design style is that I do not commit to a theme or an era or a style. It's not traditional or modern or blah, 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 blah. It's just what makes me happy. And so that's where in a room like this, there's like these traditional side tables, and then this like funky light that's made of stone that glows up with, I don't know, I don't like labels. I just like to put what I like. And so I feel like this room is a great reflection of this. Now that it's Christmas, we have a Christmas tree, and we've got these Star Wars ornaments that my mom had made, and so my kids just hung this from a light fixture. So this sideboard here is where we store all of our games, and I actually had bought this from Goodwill. I love thrifting and finding things on a whim, and I had it repainted. I put some gold paint here and changed out the knobs. I just love like the scale with this big TV, but I love this high and low, like super, 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 super high, super, 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 super low. So I love that juxtaposition. So you know how in my living room I had shown you the coffee table that had all of those really pretty books? Well, in this TV room, I like books that we really use and that are funny. And so this is a Q&A of like, you know, the questions that I've asked my kids throughout the year. This is a Sherlock Holmes puzzle book, and this, my kid just got into this. It's my life in sketches, and so every day he'll do a sketch in here. And then I have another book that a kid made at school. And so that's what I like about this TV room. It's like this is very user-friendly, and we can be sitting here not just watching TV or playing a game, but you know, let's get up, let's write, let's fill in these books. So it's user-friendly. I love stones. Stones are very Brazilian, and I just think that they're beautiful, and I just love decorating with them. And so here is malachite, and then petrified stone, And I don't think of things of like, oh, it has to match or whatever. It's just, I like them. They're just two totally random tables that I just put together, and I just have this thing for stone. It's a Brazilian thing. Okay, so follow me upstairs where this wallpaper leads us up. And here we are in my bedroom. Post-divorce, I completely redecorated this to be a reflection of me and all of the things that I love. Hence the olive walls, the pink ceiling, frou-frou boho floral fabric, floral boho bedding. I love my bedroom. I love it. All the rattan mixed with like funkier elements like this. Lots of layering of colors and patterns. I've got dabs of the tiger velvet like anywhere I can. And I do love watching TV in bed, but I love putting art just all around it, just so it's not like one big eyesore, but we've got you know, lots of other things camouflaging the TV. So as an interior designer, I have so many good trade secrets and great sources for fabrics and wallpapers and all of this, but it's so fun for me to find things on a hunt as I'm out and about. So this antique Moroccan table I got from an antique store in Louisville. This chair I got from a vintage store here in Lexington. This chair was just like tan, and it was my parents', and then I just had it reupholstered. And yeah, this pillow here was from Turkey. I got it from a Turkish dealer in High Point, North Carolina. The art is a mix of like fancy art gallery stuff with like, this is from Etsy, just printed and then like framed in a fun way. I just love that mix and match and that hunt. Sometimes I'm sourcing things directly from my library at my studio. Other times it's like when I'm out and about shopping on a whim. So as an interior designer, I have headboards made for clients all the time, and I've got a workroom that does it. But in my space, I just do it myself. So this was plywood that I just got from a home improvement store that they cut, and then I just wrapped it in batting and fabric, stapled it, and then glued the trim to it, and then just anchored it to the bed. So I've done this with my own headboard and with my kids' headboards, but if you're a client of mine, my workroom does it, and they do it really nice and real fancy. So follow me into the bathroom. Now this space here is part of the renovation. When I built the kitchen, I built 2 closets and this bathroom above it. And this is the community bathroom. My children do have their own bathroom, but everyone just like flocks to where I am. And so that's where I joke that this is the community bathroom. Like, we have very little boundaries. It's important to me that rooms feel like rooms, and like I didn't want this bathroom to feel all bathroomy. So that's where I've taken 2 rugs and I layered it. I have this patterned sisal layered with this antique-y looking rug, more of the tiger velvet that I cannot get away from. Really bold window treatments. It's tie-dye with this like funky trim. I am obsessed with this and all of this like pattern mix. And my shower curtain is so funky, and this just makes me so happy. But when you see a lot of this pattern frenzy, it's important to balance with neutrals. And so that's where I've intentionally put this mix of like the sisal rug, the rattan chair, the grass shade, the brass stool. So you see how all of this just like, it's just a balance about like an explosion of color and pattern, and then like knowing when to rein it in. So here we are in the kids' bedroom. My kids are 9 and 10, and they have always shared a bedroom, but for Christmas, they're each getting their own bedrooms. And so this is set up exactly the way that I have loved it. I made their headboards, I styled everything like I love. But it's about to get real tacky real fast based on their wish lists for their own bedrooms. I have the eldest whose bedroom is going to be comedy themed. So I'm going to do like a vinyl brick wall on one side as if he's on stage. I'm going to have memes from The Office and from Saturday Night Live. I'm going to have some Save the Whales campaigns because he's really into saving the whales. Kid number 2 loves basketball, and so I am just embracing NBA everything. The sheets, the bedding, the stuff on the wall. I'm putting in a basketball hoop. I'm doing a rug that looks like a basketball court. I do not like themes. My kids love a themed room, and so their wish is my command. So this is about to get real tacky real fast. Home to me is the place that brings you joy. It is your happy place. It is your sanctuary. It is your getaway from the hustle and bustle of the world. And so it's so important that you surround yourself in your home with the things that bring you joy, and so much joy.